about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. Welcome, everybody. We're coming into man. We're almost at Christmas. We're getting there. But unfortunately, it's been a very, very, deadly, very difficult time the last few weeks. And updates came in yesterday, which I'm sure many of you have heard, as it pertained to the Brown University shooting that hurt multiple people, claimed 2 lives. And there was a manhunt for the shooter that had gone on for days. They finally found the alleged suspect. They identified the shooting suspect as Claudio Manuel Neves Valente. He here legally has been here for years. In fact, I think went to MIT. And he was found dead Thursday evening in Salem, New Hampshire. I was just there, actually, a few months ago. And they found, I believe, I think a homeless person had been able to lead authorities to the car he took, the rental car, and they found him dead with a self-inflicted gunshot wound in a storage facility. Neves Valente, 48 years old, was a Portuguese national, actually studied at Brown from the fall of 2000 to the spring of 2001 to study physics. This is according to Brown President Christina Paxson. Then he took a leave of absence, withdrew in 2003. The reason why I brought up MIT is apparently the MIT nuclear physics professor who suffered fatal gunshot wounds on Monday at his home in Massachusetts, Nuno Loureiro, went to the same university as Neves Valente. So they believe there is a link to these 2 murders. School records show that the suspect possibly had a monitor position at the Instituto Superior Técnico in Portugal. School records show they believe he is the same person as the killer. Now, do we have a motive yet? No, we don't. We don't know. Rhode Island authorities said the investigation is being handled now by Massachusetts authorities, so they're, obviously we're going to get more information, but what we do have is at 9 p.m. federal agents breached a storage locker in Salem. According to Fox News, searching for him. They knew who he was searching for. Apparently, he screwed around with his SIM cards. He changed the license plates of his rental car to try to, he had this plan. This is, and, sadly, he took the lives of 2 students, hurt multiple injuries, and the shooting happened 4 p.m. on Saturday when these students were getting ready for finals week, going to a student session or to a study session. And one thing that Ella Cook of Alabama, may she rest in peace, Muhammad Aziz Urzakov of Virginia, were the 2 identified as killed. Unfortunately, multiple students are still being treated in local hospitals. But one thing that really frustrated me, and I think frustrated a lot of authorities, was, how many days it took to find this person. Because when you have a shooter at large, who else can they hurt? And now that there's that possible link to after the Saturday mass shooting at Brown University, the MIT professor on Monday, time was of the essence. If he was linked to both killings, you can't have somebody at large. And one thing that really, really bothered me, which we spoke about last week or earlier this week, was many of the pictures had him in a COVID mask, a mask. And, we prior to COVID had spidey sense. If somebody walked into a bank, if somebody walked into your classroom wearing a mask prior to COVID, it's bad news. You might have seconds to be able to react, jump, flee. Students were saying that they made eye contact with him as he was walking towards the room. Well, here we are in 2025. You have somebody walking around with a mask, and it takes minutes to go from street to the classroom. Nobody stopped him. Why? Well, it's a COVID mask. He was probably wearing a mask because of COVID. And I think this is really frustrating law enforcement as well as security institutions and just us in general. Because, just 5 years ago, if somebody's wearing a mask, I'm like, okay, you're up to no good. Something's up. Or, you could be immunocompromised. And you could kind of tell if somebody's immunocompromised, needing oxygen, whatever. But a tall, strapping person walking around with a mask used to be a huge red flag, and now it's commonplace. And I think it was Philadelphia that tried to outlaw masks, saying, guys, we're not going to be doing ski masks in the summer. We're not doing this because, again, people were using it to hide their identity. Now, luckily, our tech and AI has gotten pretty good where they can, even just on eyes and eyebrows, they're able to do, facial recognition, but it makes the process longer and harder. I'm blown away that Luigi Mangione, how fast they were able to find him at a McDonald's. Where did he go? Pennsylvania, was it? After he killed, allegedly, Ken Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare in New York. And it was because somebody saw the eyes and the bushy eyebrows. And it was somebody in the back corner wearing a surgical mask. And so I think slowly people are starting to say, okay, wait a second, that person's wearing a mask. I don't know how worried they are about COVID, or are they trying to hide their identity? But still, there's just too many people in masks. Now, I go shopping and I'm worried about the next shooter. There's a Hanukkah event. And unfortunately, everybody and their mother is still wearing COVID masks. And I get it. Wearing a surgical mask, I used to wear before COVID with patients. So if somebody breathed on me, I wouldn't then breathe on them. But when you have somebody walking around outside, like we saw this suspect in the Brown shooting, wearing a mask outside, to me, Spidey senses this person may be up to no good. But instead, people are like, well, somebody with a COVID mask. And I think that's very, very frustrating. In banks, when you walk in, they now make you remove the mask. Everybody's trying to now figure out how to, protect others during this. So I think if you're not sick and you're not, you're outside in a wide open area, ditch the mask. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away. Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So I am a huge critic of politics getting into medicine. And I have been extremely frustrated over the last few administrations when I felt that politics was starting to change how we, doctors and nurses do things. So if I think that we are affecting science, manipulating science, making up stuff as we go, I'm going to call it out. And I've been doing that now for the, last, 16 years I've been on air, going on 17 in January. So when I woke up and got alerts this morning saying, from people saying that, RFK Jr. is going to kill kids. He's killing kids. I was like, what's going on here? What? And he's not going to fund SIDS research. He's not going to fund. And I was like, what's going on here? Now I was like, are we talking about abortion again now? What's happening? And I was very I was like, what's going on here? So basically, the HHS is going to stop funding 7 grants, multiple grants, that do include grants going to the American Academy of Pediatrics. Now, the American Academy of Pediatrics, American Academy of Family Physicians, these American academies, I am fans of. I love the work they do. They do great advocacy. The problem is they do get political. And when Obama cut tons of grants and programs, you didn't really hear, from, the AEP, the AFP, you didn't, and so, when you only hear about it, when it's one administration and not the other, if you're advocating for health and that's, let's, not just pick one side or the other. Another problem, and like I said, these, I'm a part of the American Academy of Family Physicians. I support, I pay my dues. But the one thing that I am seeing and I'm hearing from doctors is that the American Academy of Pediatrics or obstetrics and gynecology or family medicine physicians don't necessarily represent all doctors' views. So when OBs were telling me, I don't want to give a COVID vaccine to a healthy pregnant patient, and they're making us do that, I don't want to do that. When RFK Jr. said, look, you want to use it, a pregnant patient wants it, they have it. We're just not going to have the recommendation that everybody gets it when they're pregnant. A lot of OBs were like, whew. However, some OBs didn't like that. And so I believe the American Academy of Obstetrics and Gynecologists spoke out against it. And, same thing with the vaccine, the hepatitis vaccine being given day one. I'm mixed on that because I've had a lot of parents going, I don't want to give a vaccine to my 24-hour-old. Can't I wait till they're 2 months old? And so one thing the HHS has just done is said, look, guys, if the child is born to hepatitis parents or you think they're high risk, give it to them at day one. But if not, they could wait till 2 months with the other vaccines. I'm mixed because these 2-month-olds do get a lot of vaccines. But one issue I had with the 24-hour administration, even though studies found it safe, but the problem I had is every time we give a vaccine or we give a medication, we tell parents to look for red flags and to tell us if anything changes, any change in the way they act. They, like my son, after he got his 2-month vaccines, he just lied there listless. I mean, he was different. And so when a parent doesn't know their 24-hour child, they can't really alert the doctor. And I used to get so many calls from parents saying my child is reacting to the hepatitis vaccine. And I go, why? They go, all my child is doing is sleeping. Now, newborns do that, though. But they couldn't tell. They were panicking. Is it that the shot was causing the child to be lethargic, or was it that newborns sleep a lot? And so, for me, I'm like, look, I like patient choice. If they want the vaccine on day one, they can have it. If they want to wait till 2 months old and the child is not at high risk, and the doctors are okay with it, that's fine too. So like I said, I could see both sides to that. But unfortunately, when the decision was made to maybe roll back what we're doing with the COVID vaccine. And rather than mandating all 6-month-old infants get the COVID vaccine, let's reserve it for those who are ill, for those parents who want it, and for healthy kids that aren't at risk. Maybe it doesn't have to be recommended that they all get it. Well, even though a lot of doctors said, I agree, sometimes they don't feel represented by these administrations or by these associations. So I love the work they do. I support them. But many people, they go, so all the doctors think this way. I can't speak for all doctors, but unfortunately, you have 2 rabbis. They'll have different interpretations of the Bible. 2 priests could have 2, same thing with doctors. Not everybody agrees. Some people say, look, get everybody vaccinated. It's safer. The studies show it's safe. Others say, why don't we just, give them what they need and if they're healthy, don't do harm, do less. So there's definitely multiple schools of thought. So when it comes to grants, we want to make sure that there's no revenge. We want to make sure that we don't have an administration that is retaliatory, that is taking revenge. How the media is now wording this is RFK Jr. Shall we say, has been, battling the AAP and the RFK Jr. and the HHS have been not seen eye to eye on a lot of things. And so this is a retaliatory thing. On the other end, Obama, other presidents, if they have X amount of funding and they need that funding to go to sickle cell, to go to pediatric cancer, are they going to continue to fund gender dysphoria and transitioning treatments in minors? So this is nothing new. Do grants get canceled all the time? I've worked with grants. You have to always reapply. You have to be very transparent. And I've worked in places where they got grant money and you're like, what, did you guys even use it? I mean, you guys were supposed to use this grant money. So it's not anything new. It's not earth shattering that a grant might not get renewed. I mean, look at government contracts. Government contracts don't get renewed. These individuals who are contractors that work for Boeing and Lockheed and all that, I mean, at a whim, the contract might not get renewed. That just happens. But as I said, I want to make sure that we don't have politics infused in it. Now, if somebody's telling me, so I'd like a little bit more transparency. So we're hearing that some of the grants are 7 grants that are not going to, I guess, continue to have funding. So one is the comprehensive, something's going on with my light. Sorry, guys. One is the comprehensive systems integration for adolescent and young adult health well-being. Now, that sounds great, but I don't know much about what that is. The Safe Infant Sleep Systems Integration Program. Now, I think that has to do with sudden infant death. I do want the American Academy of Pediatrics to still be able to study sudden infant death. But when you do renew the grant, if there wasn't, I guess, much that came out of that grant, and whoever is providing the grant wants to put the money towards childhood cancer or whatever, that's not that shocking. But I do like the idea of us studying it, but it's Safe Infant Sleep Systems Integration. There's a telehealth technology enabled learning program for rural adolescent and child health telehealth training. There's universal newborn hearing screening cooperative agreement. Now, from what I understand, we're still going to be universally screening newborns. So I don't know if this grant is studying that or allowing more kids to be screened. But from what I understand, all newborns are being screened as it is. If that funding gets cut and newborns aren't being screened for hearing issues, that's a problem. And I'm definitely going to speak out about that because I want to make sure our newborns get their screenings. National partnerships to address prenatal alcohol and fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. I want there to be national partnerships, but if, and so there's a list of others. And let me just make sure there's nothing else, because SIDS was one of them. National partnerships to improve and protect the nation's health, strengthening public health systems. Okay, so there was a grant looking at strengthening public health systems. All right, I mean, these are wonderful things, but it's not that much of a shock that if RFK Jr. wants to put the money towards eliminating toxins in food, and in fact, I think his direct quote, if I have that, was, and I'm not saying this is a good move, but from what I understand, if they want to shift the money to other things, that's, something that always seems to happen. It's just, I want to make sure this isn't, we don't like you, so someone's going to retaliate. But I don't think kids are going to die. I really don't think that's where the conversation needs to go. 1-877 Doc Dolly. Hi, guys. Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping, addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh, over the fields we go, laughing all the way.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So the holidays are here. Woohoo! I think President Trump is going to allow federal workers to get an extra couple days off. So Christmas comes, on Thursday? And so Trump is giving the federal employees an extra 2 days off around Christmas. So they could be off Christmas Eve as well as the day after Christmas. It's interesting because Christmas last year, I believe, came on a Wednesday. And I actually like that. I like middle of the week holidays. One, because it's about the holiday. It's not supposed to be about a 3-day weekend. You know how people wanted to move Veterans Day to make it a 3-day weekend? And I'm like, no, Veterans Day, which began as Armistice Day, November 11th. I mean, there's meaning to that. It's not just about everybody getting a 3-day weekend. If the whole purpose of the holiday is to remember and recognize things, then, it should be about that day. However, with Christmas travel and all that, one thing that I noticed is even though I worked all the way through, if you're trying to figure out, well, do we do the weekend before the week? What if you can't take the whole week off? It does help when Christmas falls on a weekend. But when it doesn't, most people will just take off Christmas Eve, take off the day after Christmas. It's interesting because as a doctor, those individuals who wanted to work, we paid extra, and those individuals didn't want to, but I was always in the office answering, because the day after Christmas, people were busy, people were sick. So for me, it's always busy in medicine. Hospitals are open, people are working, but President Donald Trump has signed an executive order giving federal employees the 24th and 26th off. Those are paid days. Christmas Day is a federal holiday, so they get it off. He's not the first president to give, an extra day off to round out the weekend, but this is unique in that there's 2. Now, some agencies and offices may need to remain open. And federal employees that work in those places that have to be open on, weekdays, whether it's national security, defense, other public need, yeah. Now, I wonder if they'll be getting holiday pay. That'll be interesting. So, Joe Biden gave Christmas Eve off in 2024. Trump has given off Christmas Eve in 2020, 19, 18. So, but this is, I think, the first time in recent years where they got 2 extra days. Now, back in 2014, President Obama gave federal employees the day off on Friday, December 26th. And in 2012, they got Monday, December 24th off. So that's nice. And George W. Bush also gave Monday, December 24th off in 2007 and 2001. So that's interesting. I don't know. No, George W. Bush. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I was going to say George H. Bush was the older. George W. Bush was in office for 2 terms. So that's good. People are excited. So now we have record-breaking travel that is expected. Is it because of all the individuals traveling? Is it because people find that where Christmas falls, it makes it easier? But we are expecting millions upon millions of people to be hitting the airlines. And as I've said before, you got to pack your patience. And I really, really love Christmas time. It is just it's my favorite time of year. But unfortunately, for those of you that have to travel, it's very stressful. And we always kind of, tell you guys to look, just make sure you have a huddle with your family, because with your immediate family and spouse, because I get calls and I get patients not happy about this time of year because they have to travel to a place they don't want to go to. They don't want to travel for Christmas, and they don't want to be at the in-laws. And, on one end, you could be like, well, boo-hoo, sorry, that's what Christmas is about. But for other people who really get to enjoy Christmas and get to look forward to it, I really feel for those people, because I understand having to be somewhere where you don't want to be. That sucks. It does. And, if you do have extended family or in-laws that make you miserable, it stinks. It really does. And in fact, one of my friends had told my husband that they're just celebrating the 4 of them. They're not doing anything for Christmas. They're just kind of going to go away and just celebrate it with their own little nuclear family. And I'm not anti big extended families. As I told you, it even helps having a big family where you could then, partner up with people who you like, and can then hopefully avoid the people you don't like. But yeah, I'm just sensing that with all the drama and that, many individuals are like, look, I would just rather, I really want to enjoy the holidays. And I don't want to, interfere with how people celebrate Christmas. But it's a very difficult thing when somebody in the family wants to express that they really don't like it. And how do you pick up on that? Well, they're not that excited. You're like, yay, we're going. And the other family member's like, okay. Or they seem stressed, or they're not sleeping, or they're, and that's why I always recommend do your own Christmas celebration if you can, even if it's not on Christmas. If you have to be somewhere on Christmas and that, ask your loved one, look, how would you like to celebrate Christmas? If we do go to the family, would you, I want to celebrate Christmas the way you want to celebrate it. And one other thing that I've picked up on that a lot of people don't talk about is, when you have kids, you kind of think about how you want to extend traditions and things. And I love the fact that we incorporate what our grandparents did and our great-grandparents did. But oftentimes when you merge with somebody, you want to come up with your own traditions. And I remember actually having this conversation with my husband, because when I, when I dated him and then we got engaged, the messaging I got is I am joining his family. And I am now a part of his family, and this is what they do. Whereas my messaging was, I'm not going to make you a part of my family. All right. You and I are going to now start forming our own nuclear family, and we'll incorporate both sides of the family, but we're going to come up with also our own traditions. We're going to incorporate stuff from but we're also going to do our thing. And that didn't go well with one side of the family. And so if you're thinking, look, this is how I would want to do Christmas, and you don't get to celebrate Christmas with your kids the way you want to, that starts to brew resentment. And so you need to be able to say, look, what are we going to do as, this is our family. This is our, what can, this is something that I want us to do where we're contributing, both equally, and we're making it something that will have the traditional type stuff from the parents, grandparents, but let's kind of this is what I'd like to do. I'd like to go and see snow. I'd like to ski on Christmas. I'd like to do a Disneyland trip. I'd like to, I want to do certain things on Disneyland or on Christmas. This is something I want to do. And I understand you might not be able to always get your way, but if Christmas and these holidays are already kind of dominated, by one side of the family, and that's how it always has to be, that's a problem. And we talk about everything on this show. And I know some of you are like, oh, gosh, don't bring that up. I really don't want my wife complaining or my husband complaining about. But there's already a good chance they're unhappy. If they always have to spend the holidays with people they don't want to. And they might love their in-laws. They might dislike their own family. And they might prefer to be with the in-laws and not with their family. So, I mean, it could go either way. But, realize that if Christmas is always one way, and you might want to consider, look, we'll also do our own Christmas. We'll also do our own little things. So we get to incorporate our own, sort of stuff. And then, the kids could decide if they want to continue the more traditional or also add, what we did. And it is okay. A lot of people don't think they celebrate on another day. Sometimes that works really, really well. For those of you traveling, pack your patience. It's going to be rough at the airports. They're expecting millions upon millions of travelers. If you are going to get there late, miss dinner, don't panic about that. You guys could celebrate in so many different ways. 1-877 Doc Dolly. Don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So, each year we talk about when it's a good time to, give kids the Santa talk. People always ask, when should my kid know the truth about Santa? And my response to that is, Santa's real. I always believe in Santa. When I meet a really good, authentic Santa, I feel love. I feel joy. I love Santa. I'll sit on Santa's lap, thank him for everything he's done, tell him what I want for Christmas. I love the concept of Santa, and I'm an adult, And when I see, though, a Santa that doesn't look like a real Santa, I don't get a good feeling. I don't like that. And I've seen a couple of them going, okay, I appreciate what you're doing, but I get a bad vibe. But when you have these individuals, wow, I don't know if he's still doing it, but years ago in northern Arizona, they have a Polar Express where you get on a train. And it was snowing outside. It was so wonderful. And the kids are in their pajamas. So we're all in our pajamas and we get on a train and we get all warm and snuggly with our blankets and hot cocoa. And they give you cookies and bells. And I ran into Santa, probably because I was looking for a bathroom. And I ran into Santa and Santa looks at me with that twinkle in his eye and his wink. I was like, hi, Santa. I'm sorry. And I'm Jewish. Love Santa. Love Santa. So as far as I'm concerned, now I'll tell you how you could have the talk, but you don't have to necessarily say he's not real. You don't have to say it like that, but you could, explain, how the kids get the gifts. And I'll go into that in a little bit. But unfortunately, or for some people, they might say fortunately, but unfortunately, parents are pretty ticked because Google and AI is having the conversation for them, even though they're not ready for that conversation to be had. And so apparently there was this 11-year-old child, and I'm kind of shocked that an 11-year-old still doesn't really understand the concept of Santa, but the mom was shocked when the child was asking about the budget Santa had. That's pretty smart for an 11-year-old. I'm just shocked that an 11-year-old was, because the mom said that, the child believes in Santa, which again, I'm okay with to that degree. But, her son Leo did believe in Santa, but want to know about his spending budget. And Google's AI said there is no set amount Santa spends per child, as he is a fictional character. And so the boy screamed, a fictional character. And then the mom had to say, no, Google doesn't always tell the truth. I still believe in Santa. Don't listen to Google. And so people have been talking, and now they've been checking and seeing what, Google's AI is doing. And I mean, Google's not wrong. There might not be one particular human being biologically that's Santa, but the concept of Santa is very real. The feelings that he exudes and how you feel around it, and the idea of have you been naughty or nice? If you've been nice, there's accountability for that. You can't be expecting presents if you've been naughty. And I know a lot of psychologists say that's bad because if a kid thinks they're naughty, then they think they're done. And if they were naughty January 1, they think they're screwed for the next year and they won't get on the list and they won't, and so I get how some people have had issues with it. I love the concept. I think it's great. If you want to get on the nice list, do nice things. Be a good person. Right? Be nice to your little brother or your little sister. Be nice to your big brother and sister. Don't backtalk your mama. I think it's fantastic. But, seeing that Google and AI, these kids have access to things where, porn, all sorts of things that, which is why you want to make sure that there's parental restrictions. But who would have thought that something like Santa and being told about Santa or the Tooth Fairy is, was something that you had to guard against, at that age with that. And so, understand that your kids are probably going to be a lot more informed about things than we were as kids, but also understand that there can be misinformation. And you need to be accessible. So when somebody sees something that scares them or worries them, they're going to want to go to mom or dad. Now, many of us are working, we're not around, and so our kids are accessing the stuff when we're not there. Luckily, this child was able to go to his mom, and say, they're saying Santa's fictional. And then the mom could explain it. But oftentimes, our kids are looking at things at night or when we're asleep, and they're not able to bounce it off of us. I mean, we're talking like young kids. And then all they could do is absorb it, and then that starts to change your thinking, not to mention some of the misinformation that you could get online. And that's frightening. And so you need to have conversations with your kids saying, look, things are going to come up on the internet, and some things are going to be true, some aren't. And you need to understand, always run it by us. I will not get mad. If you see something online, or if you search for something online, I'm not going to get mad. Now, somebody could say, Dahlia, are you practicing what you preach? Yes. My son looked up boobies online, and I got mad at him. Not because he was looking up boobies, but because he misspelled it. I think he spelled it Bubbee. I think he was like 5 or 6. I don't mind you looking at boobies, but you got to spell it right. I mean, come on. I mean, I've been taking you to school. I've been working with you, and learn to spell it right. So that's where I got mad. But you have to have a conversation with your children saying, look, if there's something that you want to know, I'm okay with you looking that up. However, I am worried because there are some things that are wrong and some things that are dangerous. And you will never get in trouble talking to me about things you were looking up. And you want to establish that because, you have some kids going, well, ISIS sounds interesting. You want to know what your kids are looking at. You want to know who is communicating with your kids, what these kids are being advertised, and because then they come to you and they say, well, this sounds good or this sounds interesting. And you're like, whoa. So you need to be aware. When it comes to, what age is age appropriate, usually is when are the kids talking about it in school? So if your child is going to the first grade and everybody's talking about Christmas and Santa, and you have Billy going, what are you guys talking about? Santa's not real. Well, then I guess 6 years old is then I guess 6. But if everybody's kind of on the same page, it could go as long as you want. What I recommend, and mind you, I'm Jewish, so with our kids, we did talk about Santa because we always celebrated Christmas in some fashion, and we always had friends and stuff, and it was just we're surrounded by it, and so we always had conversations about it. But my kids were concerned. Does Santa only go to Christian kids' homes, and does Santa not are Jewish kids bad or Jewish kids whatever? And then so I kind of had to have the conversation saying, look, Santa, to me, we all have access to Santa. Santa loves all of us. Santa's great. Santa's good. But in terms of getting presents to everybody, that's very, very hard to do. And they understood that concept in terms of the 24-hour thing and, getting all the homes done. But when you get a present and a gift, whether it's through, your parents or whatever, there's Santa in that. And the reason why I could have that conversation with them and make it work is because that's how I talk about God with the kids. I go, look, you guys are really, really happy that this happened. And you might be thinking, a person or an entity, but thank God. Because for this to happen, God was a part of it too. I Dad and me made you. You guys were made by Dad and me, but God was there too. Now, maybe not there, hopefully not figured literally, but you're here because of God. And so having that look, when everybody gets gifts and they're thanking Santa, Santa is a part of this because the reason why you're getting the Christmas gifts is because it's Christmas time. So it is okay to be a part of that, but understand that, he isn't entering the house literally. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away.
Land on your roof and shout, ho, ho, ho. So welcome with a warm applause, Mr. Santa Claus.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by Financial Fitness Show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.